conference is now being recorded.
Welcome to the New York ASBO webinar, The Budget Presentation. My name is Matthew Darius. I am the Senior Staff Associate for Professional Development at ASBO, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Your speaker for today's program is Mike Sanangelo. Operator assistance is available at any time during the conversation by pressing 0, then pound. A Q&A session can follow the presentation if needed. Just let us know if you'd like that. You may send chat questions at any time during the presentation using the chat window indicated by a speech bubble icon located to the right of the presentation. I'll now turn the call over to our speaker, Mike Sanangelo. Please begin, sir.
Thank you, Matthew, and good afternoon to everyone. Either welcome back or welcome for the first time. This is part 3 of a 4-part series in budgeting and financial planning put on by the New York State ASBO. Today, as the subject implies, we're talking about the presentation of the budget. What I've attempted to do is to bring together or synthesize some of the information that is out there, coupled with some of my personal experience over the past 25 years and experiences that others have shared with me in their presentations of school budgets. So I hope by the end that you will have something that you can take back as a reference, maybe to generate further study that you can look into, or maybe there'll be something that can help you as you go along with your budget presentation for your career. The contents are what basically we will be looking at, and again, this is just a general outline of what hopefully will happen within the next hour. The contents of today's presentation will include adding credibility to the budget document. We will talk some about presentation software and how to use the software. We'll look at the value of using charts and graphs, and then we will end with speaking tips or concerns and ideas and thoughts that to help you when you are making your presentation. I think in a word, this can all be summarized as marketing your school budget, and where that may not seem to be an appropriate term for budgeting, I think it is a topic that is of very much concern for the school business official and for the superintendents. So don't forget that this process of budget presentation is very much a shared and collaborative approach with the superintendent mainly, but certainly others in your school district can be involved with the budget presentations. Schools are under a lot of scrutiny these days, as I'm sure I don't have to mention to you. There are certainly pressures from all sides and issues. There's certainly issues about workforce preparation of our students. There's also issues of just general suspicion of people that work for the government, and certainly the people that would be listening to your presentation would consider you to be the government. And there's issues on privatization and accountability. So there are a host of things that make the marketing of the school budget extremely important, and probably even more so than what we used to face in previous years. Along with that, there certainly are a number of stakeholders out in the public that you, as a presenter of a school budget, need to be aware of and to have to cater some of your presentations to. For instance, I've listed a few here, and each one of these may have different agendas that you may need to identify, or that will certainly be a part of what your concerns may be when you make your budget presentation. A lot of these I'm sure you've experienced, but certainly the booster clubs, the PTOs, There are people and groups out there, obviously, that have interests, special interests. These are just a few. Booster clubs obviously have interest, and so do the PTOs. There are special education interest groups that are certainly vying for the dollars that are appropriated by school districts. Others, gifted education. You certainly have the cheerleader moms, soccer moms, as we sometimes hear, and those people that want to make sure that the sports program is continued in its normal fashion. And then, of course, the unions and bargaining units are out there vying for the school dollar. These are all people and groups with different agendas that you have to be aware of and frame your presentation to. There's all sorts of socioeconomic and ethnic groups that may have issues and concerns about certain ways that the curriculum is being presented, or certain ideas that they would like to see become part of the curriculum. There are certain religious ideas that people have that come into play when you are presenting to them. And, of course, there's the political issues, that being like school choice or charter schools. And so you have a whole host of diverse agendas out there, and you need to be in tune and understand who these people are and exactly, and try to tune into their needs as you make your presentation. Now, at the last presentation, I brought up about the strategic planning, and we'll most likely do this again in the next couple presentations, because I believe it's very important part of our budgeting process, and certainly a very important part of the budget presentation, because the budget presentation will go a lot smoother and more effective if you have done a strategic plan, if you have done your homework with various groups with the diverse agendas, as we'll see some of the things that you can do before your presentation to prepare the individuals and groups for certain for your presentation. So again, just if you weren't here for the last presentation, then I just want to briefly remind you about the components of a strategic plan, and you can see by the nature of these, for instance, belief system with the diverse agendas that I just mentioned, and it's very difficult to come up with a belief system of all stakeholders, but that is exactly what your strategic plan is designed to do or attempt to do. And so if you've gone through the procedure of trying to come up with a belief system and a mission, you certainly are on your way to have prepared your public for your presentation. Now, of course, not everyone is going to join in and rally around your strategic plan, but sometimes the process is worth as much as the end product. And so you go through and look at your parameters. And then the next one is the internal and external analysis, known sometimes as SWOT, S-W-O-T analysis, which means strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, SWOT. And you need to do that with a strategic planning process because you need to look at your entire organization and try to anticipate or know exactly what the strengths and weaknesses and threats and opportunities are. We will see later on in the presentation that not only must you do that on a district-wide level, but I believe that you can do a SWOT for yourself before your budget presentation and help you greatly in preparing for that presentation. So not only do you need to do it on a district level with all of your stakeholders in this more formal process, but later on we'll talk about why it may help you to go through this methodology, if you will, and come up with your own analysis of strengths and weaknesses before your budget presentation. And you've probably seen or been involved with strategic planning. Again, this is something that we did look at the last session. But it gets down to the action plans and those things that the school district wants to make sure become implemented. It is also the basis then for your budgeting for the next school year. And so, again, if you have done a good job with strategic planning, you certainly are preparing the way I get this right. You're certainly preparing the way for your budget presentation. Now, you need to, again, because of the diverse agendas that we talked about, you need to interact with these groups of people and individuals. And as it says here, you need to effectively interact with them. Again, preparing for the budget presentation. It shouldn't be, it can't be a one-time, once-a-year thing. You need to prepare throughout the year for this presentation, this very important presentation, which obviously, if we're New York State schools, means either a passed or failed, can mean a passed or failed budget. So you need to identify the key players. You'll need to work with your school superintendent, and you'll need to develop who the key players are out there and assess the power of each. Now, we could have a long conversation about power of diverse groups, but in this case, it just means what are they bringing to the table? What are their needs? And you need to assess who these groups may be and what their purpose may be also. And then certainly there needs to be empathy. You need to try to understand exactly why these groups require special attention. And that's not always easy because sometimes, again, their agendas are completely different than what you may be thinking, but you need to develop this sense of trying to determine and to try to have empathy for their goals. And then you, as a school administrator, as a school business official, along with your superintendent, need to communicate to them, either throughout the school year, of course, but certainly at the budget presentation, you need to communicate the organizational objectives from your strategic plan. And again, you need to put that into and frame it into a terminology that will be meaningful to their agendas. There could be coalitions out there, groups of those with diverse agendas. Maybe they'll combine, and maybe they will try to gain something from the school district. It may be curriculum ideas. It may be additional funds for whatever their agendas may be. But you need to understand and what those coalitions may be. And again, as we said, with the strategic plan and with the way that you process your budget presentation, you need to include stakeholders. You need to understand what the public is thinking and try to develop partnerships to balance the diverse interests of all of the groups. Again, the point here is there are many diverse groups. Your job to help you with your presentation begins or is continual, and you need to effectively interact with all of these folks throughout the school year, and not just at budget time. Now, I put here a definition from Hartman's book, School District Budgeting, which is published by ASBO International. And I put it here because a couple of reasons. First of all, I believe it encompasses everything that we will talk about in this series of webinars, but it also gets to the points, some of the points that we've already discussed, and that is where we relate the mission, organization, policies, and programs and outcomes to various stakeholders. And that is exactly what we're going to try to do in our budget presentation. We certainly have to be concerned with the fiscal dimension, and we're certainly, as school business officials, are probably most comfortable with that. But not only do we have to talk about the fiscal implications, but we also need to try to talk about some of the other, again, organizational issues. Things such as how many teachers are in the school district, and what are the how many administrators and classified staff? What are the demographics of the student population? And something about technology always helps too in your presentation. How many computers are there in the school district, and how are they being used for student instruction? And also, you may want to encompass things like the current economic condition of not only your local economy, your school district economy, but also the state economy and also the federal. It is very telling to individuals and sometimes can lay the foundation that you need for your presentation to go through a simple economic analysis for the people that are listening to your presentation. So I would encourage you to look at all of those aspects, not only the fiscal elements, the revenues and expenditures and taxes, but also bring into play these other aspects. And always keep the students first in mind. Students are the business of school districts, and I think that needs to be said more and more in the budget presentation to let the people that are listening understand and know exactly why we're going through, why we're presenting this, what are we in business for. And with that, you can certainly look at things like student-teacher ratios. Maybe you could look at performance or standardized test results, and try to bring in some of these other aspects into your budget presentation. And not only do we define the budget document itself, but I've also put here defining the process, because once again, this not only talks about coming up with the fiscal expenditures and revenues and taxes, but also it mentions and talks about gaining the approval, which is all part of your budget presentation and the reason for doing your budget presentation. So again, I would encourage you, you have copies of this, to go back and look at those definitions and try to frame them into your budget presentation. Now, there are certain purposes that for budgeting, and also this becomes not only the purpose of budgeting, but some of the goals that you want to accomplish when you are presenting your budget. So certainly, one of the goals in your presentation is to project the educational plan for next year. You want to show and demonstrate and talk about what the plan is educationally. Not only the numbers, but obviously, what are we trying to accomplish? What is our mission? Again, tying it back to that strategic plan. And then, as I said, inform the audience about the fiscal environment. It's very important that you lay a foundation, the groundwork, for why your budget is the way that it is. And certainly by laying the groundwork of the fiscal environment, I think the audience will understand better, perhaps, the implications of your school budget and why it is what it is. Certainly the budget will show, and you will be demonstrating and talking to the public about the allocations of funds and the authority. Now, this can take on a couple of dimensions. First, the allocation of funds is usually something that is presented, and most of us are probably very familiar with the presentation of the budget, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. But also the authority. It is the document which allows the school district to spend money, and I think that needs to be brought up in the presentation, that your budget is the authority to spend, and certain individuals have this authority given to them. If, for instance, on a building level, you may give the principal authority over certain funds or certain accounts, and I think that is something that the public needs to know. Again, you have an opportunity during the budget presentation to inform the public about new initiatives. Maybe you're going to a pre-K program or full-day kindergarten program or some sort of intervention program. And all of this can be brought out and should be brought out in the budget presentation. Certainly, there is a comparison that is done with school services from year to year. You are required to present the current school budget and then the ensuing year school budget in your presentations. That is a requirement, and so it helps to guide and compare and evaluate how services have changed. But this is information that is important for the public to know. And then also the budget provides planning, control, and effective expenditure of funds. I think that needs to be discussed also or brought up in your presentation, that the document that you're discussing, not only the numbers, but the document itself is a legal document which does provide for the control and effective expenditure of the school district, and also guides the district, helps to guide the district for the programs that it has taken to achieve. And then, of course, one of the items that you'll bring up in your presentation will certainly be what is the relationship of state, federal, and local funding and support for your school district. And all of these things need to be brought into play, in addition to, of course, the regular or the obvious financial or fiscal information. The next slide here talks a little bit about the authorization. Again, with this presentation, we're talking about some formal and some informal ideas, because there is a formal process, obviously, that you have to follow in presenting your budget, but there's also an informal dimension to it also, which I think needs to, which you need to understand and learn more about. And basically, this just says that the Board of Education is the entity or the corporate body responsible for the presenting the budget to the public, which is probably most obvious to all of us. Get to the next one here. All right. And I got to go back there. I'm sorry. All right. And then the budget for presentation to the district, this just explains the legal requirements. It's to be prepared by the chief school officer, but obviously the chief school officer will need assistance from the school business official and others. And it also goes on to say about the some of the requirements, and I've given you some legal references there that you can check on yourself. Again, everything that I'm presenting here, a lot of it, you can certainly find on the New York State Education Department website, and they have a section there on budgeting, and so you certainly can find most reference to the laws here that I have on the website. Again, this is just another legal requirement that says that the proposed budget will be presented to the voters at an annual budget hearing. The voters will approve the budget, etc. And again, it just gives you the site. So there is a legal dimension to your presentation, as well as some informal ideas. This slide, again, talks about the Board of Education responsibility, and if you look down at the second bullet, it talks about there that the board must present its budget in the three component parts: program component, capital, and administrative. So as we know, that's taking our line item budget, and for the purpose of presentation, changing that line item budget into these three component parts. That is a requirement. You must do that when you're presenting your budget to the public. It is felt, the law that went into effect because it is felt that this sort of presentation, administrative, capital, and program, gives the best information to stakeholders so that they can make an informed decision about whether or not to vote for the budget. And then it goes on to say that the budget must be in plain language, categories of revenue, expenditures, fund balance, etc., along with a comparison of the prior year. These are all requirements that you must follow in your presentation. And again, all of this is readily available to you on the State Education Department website, and now here for your further reference. And then it goes on to talk about some of the other aspects or formal things that need to be done, requirements. Certainly the administrative disclosure of those individuals, compensation that exceeds a certain amount, and also any individual who has the word superintendent in their title, that information on their salary and benefits needs to be disclosed also. And again, the $118,000 is the amount for the current school year. I'm not aware that the new amount has been published at this point, so that's why the 118 is in there, which is this current school year. And then obviously the last one there talks about the school report cards, which again, all of this information must be presented. If you will recall, at the last meeting, our last webinar, we did talk about the budget statement, which includes all of these items also, which must be made available for your public. Again, you don't have to mail a budget statement to the stakeholders, but you do have to have one available should they come into your school buildings and ask for it. But all of the presentations that you made should at least reference these required aspects of school district budgeting. These are more of the legal requirements. Again, it talks about a public hearing and the annual meeting, and it goes on to talk about some of the publications that must take place in the newspaper. All of these are requirements. Again, the thing on this slide I think that is probably of most interest or importance to you is that you are required to have that public hearing no more than 14 days, as it says here, nor less than 7 before the election or the vote on the budget. But if you wait till that point to have a public hearing, a budget hearing, you certainly will have met the letter of the law. However, it does not usually give you sufficient time to make any adjustments. So it is typically suggested that there be other opportunities for the public to contribute or to ask questions or to give you input on the budget process beside this one legally required. And so you will find many school districts have a regular opportunity for the public to participate in the budget program or the budget board meetings as they go through the budget. But again, these are some legal requirements for you to look at and have available at your fingertips as you need it. And as we go to the next slide. Okay. All right. And again, this is more information about the budget and its availability and some of the legal things that you need to be concerned about. Most of this, again, will be brought up. It's certainly in the basic webinar that we will present in November, but also you can find it on the website. I put it here because I want to make the point that there is a legal process in budget presentation along with other informal or discretionary process that you can come up with. But again, this is all here for you, and you can look at this and refer to it as you need to. The adoption of the budget, again, a legal, formal process. The board must submit the budget to the voters no more than 2 times. If the voters fail to approve the budget after the second submission, then they must adopt a contingency budget. Again, information which most of us probably are very familiar with, and we will see again when we talk about the basic budgeting workshop. And as I said earlier, there is a requirement that your budget presentation have a budget statement, which is, again, made available or is available for the public to come in if they ask for it. It's not a requirement that you mail this or send it out, but if someone asks for your budget, then you must have this budget statement available. And if you are doing your formal public hearing, this statement must also be available at the public hearing so that if a stakeholder asks for a copy, you can certainly give it to them. And again, it talks about that these are the parts of the budget statement, the 3-part format, the property tax report card, the school academic report cards, the fiscal accountability summary, the salary disclosure notice, and the tax exemption report, which is new for the prior school year. So these items must be a part of the budget statement, or sometimes known as the popular budget, popular in the sense of populous, a document which needs to be put together so that it's readily available if someone should ask for it. So you need to keep that in mind. You need to show your budget as a 3-part format. Again, that is for budget presentation purposes only. It would be very difficult to manage the school district budget that way. You don't want to manage it based on the 3-part, but you certainly must present your budget in the 3-part format. Now, I put up here the budget vote history over the last few years, last 5 years. As you can see, it doesn't look, at least in my mind, it looks not too bad. When you hit high 80s and 90% approval rating, it kind of sets the stage, I think, for the remainder of our presentation because something seems to be going well. There doesn't seem to be a huge issue. Now, I'm sure that the districts that are not part of that 90% might feel differently, but by and large, districts are obviously doing something, I would say, right, in that we have such a high percentage of budgets passing. Even this past, this current school year, when budgets were put out there with all of the issues, we still had a 92.2% approval rating, which I think is good. So we're going to go through and give you some tips and ideas about budget presentation, but again, I would just say that most of you probably are already using most of those because you certainly, whatever you're doing, seems to be working fairly well. What will be some of the issues that you'll have to face coming up? And we could think of probably a lot more, but I've tried to list here for your presentations things that you need to be familiar with, certainly, but also try to now to begin to put together information on, because we will certainly have issues about pension costs. We know that that is going up extremely in a great amount, and we need to be prepared to discuss that with the public and in our presentations so that we have a handle on exactly what the implications are, not only for dollar amounts to the school district, but I think you, as a school business official, want to know what the implication is on the tax levy itself. Now, whether or not you get asked the question in the public presentation remains to be seen, but you certainly want to be prepared to answer that. It needs to be said that we are facing some economic trouble. We know that the stabilization funds will be gone. We know that the state is still projecting a huge deficit for the future, and so we need to be prepared to discuss with our stakeholders exactly what those projections may be. And you can find a wealth of information on the economic projection on the Department of Budget, New York State Department of Budget website. The Assembly actually has a section also on their website. I wouldn't try to reinvent the wheel. I would try to follow exactly what the state is saying, and at least take a look at that. You don't want to probably say too much that would be contrary to what maybe they've published, but at least look at it and be prepared to respond if somebody in the public should say, well, that isn't what I'm hearing from the governor's office. So you want to be ready for that. Reserves, a lot of school districts have used a great amount of reserves to get through these difficult times. Certainly in the past, the comptroller has had much to say about the use of reserves, and so you need to be ready and prepared to talk about reserves. And it's not going to be always an easy discussion to have with your public. And I'm going to drop down to property tax and equalization, because certainly in these poor economic times, we are seeing equalization rates which could be affected immensely because of foreclosures, etc. So you want to be ready to try to discuss this issue with your public. Again, it is difficult enough to try to explain to people that are in the know about school finance, about equalization and property tax. And certainly if you've been out there, it is a much difficult task to try to discuss with your public and stakeholders exactly what the implications of the economic downturn could be. And but I think, again, you need to prepare yourself. You need to be ready for that. Employee salaries and fringe benefits, if you're experiencing some increase with your bargaining units or with your employees, you certainly need to be ready to discuss why those employees are looking at increases in salaries where maybe the people in your district are on layoff. And you certainly want to have the right discussion prepared for that. And you want to talk about taxes as it may affect contingency. Certainly one of the requirements that you have is to come up with a contingency budget amount prior to the budget vote, and certainly that will be part of your presentation at the public hearing. And you want to be able to discuss what the implication is on the contingency budget as it pertains to taxes, and maybe make some suggestions or comments about the relatively small amount, if it is, that contingency would save the taxpayers in taxpayer dollars. So these are some of the issues. I would encourage you to sit down and contemplate and think about exactly for your district what those issues may be. I wouldn't wait until crunch time when you're trying to get the budget done. I would do that soon. It would be great to involve other people in that discussion. Certainly, if you put your heads together, you may come up with more ideas. To be able to sit down with your superintendent and other administrators, teachers, your non-instructional staff, get their ideas as to what some of the issues are, because very often your non-instructional staff will be tuned in to the people in the community to a greater extent than some of the other folks in your school district. And so I would encourage you to listen and try to take in all the information that you possibly can. Now, you know, I'm sure, that there are certain things that you cannot do when you are presenting your school budget. And as you get into budget season and as you look at making presentations, remember that you can only present factual information. You cannot use school district funds or facilities to promote a yes. And there has been some cases that have been settled by the commissioner, which goes on to even talk about avoiding the appearance of any sort of use of district funds or to promote yes. You do not want to do that. You want to avoid that appearance. You want to avoid targeting. In other words, don't just speak to or invite a group in that you think will vote in favor of your school budget. There have been cases which indicate that if you open your doors to those individuals or groups that would you think would vote yes on your school budget, you must open your door also to those that might say no. And so be careful and avoid at all costs targeting a certain group. Now, Board of Education members can represent themselves, but they need to be very careful that they are out there talking about voting yes on the budget. They must make a disclaimer that they are speaking as individuals and they can never use district funds to get that word out. But they can certainly give their opinion as elected officials, but they must make it clear that they are representing not the school district, but themselves only. And as you know, a board only is a Board of Education, a governing body, when they all are meeting in a group, in a meeting. Individual board members have no power or jurisdiction of their own individually. It's only when they come together as a board do they have certain duties and responsibilities. So they must make it clear that what they're saying is their ideas and not representing the school district. PTOs certainly can go out and ask groups to vote yes on the budget, your booster clubs, your unions. All of that is fair game. That's okay. You can certainly have those folks out there saying, please vote yes. But you've got to be careful that you don't allow these groups to use your facilities or supplies or copy machine to get a yes vote out. That is something that, again, would give an appearance that maybe the school district is trying to encourage a yes vote, and you're not supposed to use public funds to do that. And again, just with the use of facilities for groups, if you have candidates that are running for office that are, you think, or the district feels are candidates that would vote yes or would encourage a yes vote on the budget, you have to be very careful in allowing those candidates to meet with your employees or using your facilities. If you're going to do that, that's fine. Just make sure you open it up to all candidates. In other words, you can't target a candidate just like you can't target a specific group. So be very careful about how you go about presenting budget information. It must be done on a factual basis. There are plenty of commissioner regulations and decisions that address these issues. Some of them are more subtle than others. And again, remember, as a school administrator, and certainly in this case, all it takes is one individual to write to the commissioner that could start a process, a hearing with the commissioner, how the commissioner may decide on the merits of the case. Who knows? But certainly, it's individual has that right to bring that information to the commissioner and to ask the commissioner to even set aside the election if there has been some really strong or bad attempts at trying to get a yes vote out. And so be very careful about that. Always keep your presentations factual. The other item I have here is another prohibition, which we're not going to spend a lot of time on, but it's the idea of the electioneering cannot be done within 100 feet of the voting place, and you have to make sure that there's nobody campaigning or that no one is in that area on voting day. So again, the major point here for our purposes today are certainly to look at the prohibitions as far as the use of district funds and keeping your presentation factual. Now, there are certain activities that the school districts do undertake that can help, and again, that can help you market your school budget. You need to be careful, as always, to make sure you do this in a fashion which doesn't give the appearance that you're trying to get to a yes vote. And that's why it is very important to always do activities to prepare for your budget presentations throughout the school year. In other words, you want to talk to people that will be voting early on in the school year, not just at budget time. That gives the appearance that you're just trying to get a yes vote. This way, if you talk to them and do certain things throughout the year, it's just trying to have a good public relations program. So never forget that the principals play a very important role in marketing your school budget. Many individuals and stakeholders in your district are only familiar with principals and the teachers in the buildings. They don't know the school business official and maybe the superintendent because they're more in tune to what's going on a day-to-day basis with the school district, with the school building. And so use principals to help you with your school budget. Make sure you include them in the process because I think it's very important. They very often have information that you don't, and they can share and they hear information that you don't. And so make sure that you tap into that great resource that you have. And some of the other items, you can certainly encourage voter registration. That goes a long way to help inform the public and helps with your budget voting. You can have a special event. You may have some sort of a parent get-together, or maybe you invite the grandparents in to some sort of activity. Certainly principals and school business officials and superintendents and other district-level administrators should be discussing at staff meetings about the budget, be talking about the implications of the budget. The staff is a very important part of the process and should be given the information that they can go out and help you disseminate to the public. And certainly your parent meetings and booster clubs, all of these are mechanisms or opportunities where on a building level, things can occur because most of these, again, parents and stakeholders are more in tune to the buildings than they are to the district office. So make sure you include those folks in preparing for your presentation. Now, here are some marketing overviews we're going to look at some of these in a little more detail, but this is just kind of a general guide. For your presentation, keep it simple, interesting, and varied. You have, as we saw, a diverse group of stakeholders in your school district. You can't, you have to appeal as much as possible to all. And the way to do that is to keep the message simple. Don't keep it as simple as you can. Some of the issues we discuss and the concepts are very difficult, but try to bring them to simple concepts as much as you can. Try to keep your presentation interesting and use various techniques, not only PowerPoint and graphs, but you may, and speaking, but you may have a poster or something also. You have a diverse group of people, keep it varied, different people learn in different ways. Seek out venues. Look for opportunities to speak to people in your community. Go to the senior citizens meetings, to the neighborhood groups. Make sure you get on the local television station and make your budget presentation. Get into all of the possible venues that you possibly can. Your PTOs, your booster clubs. It's very important to seek out. Not enough, if you wait for them to invite you, very often you may not be invited. You need to seek them out. You need to make a phone call and say, I'd like to come and talk to your group at your next meeting about our upcoming budget. There are certain strategies that can be used to help you with marketing your school budget. Certainly you should, and we'll see this comes up later on, but you should analyze the previous vote. In other words, look at the precincts or the election districts, if you will, that you have, and look for trends. Did District A pass the budget last time, but this time didn't? And try to look for trends and find out what happened. Sometimes it has nothing to do, as I'm sure you're well aware of, with the budget. This is the only budget, that school budget is the only budget that the public can vote on. They may be upset with the town, the village, the city, or some other issue totally divorced from school budget. So you attempt to analyze and try to determine that. Not only do you analyze the numbers, but look and try to think about issues that may have occurred and why the information or the vote changed from one year to the next. And then, as we talked about, there can be certain special activities. The media is extremely important in your presentation. And I have another slide coming up that talks about some of the things to help you with the media, but you need to make sure you keep them in the loop. You need to make sure that you're presenting them information that they can understand. Remember, some of the reporters might not be in tune to some of the jargon that's used in school districts. You need to make sure that you help them understand these difficult, complex concepts that we work with. And then the parent groups and the unions can, as I mentioned, certainly get out there and help to present your budget or market it. The process, again, there is a process, a legally required process, the three-part format that has to happen. You have to have the budget hearing, but that typically won't be enough. There should be opportunities for stakeholder input throughout the school year. You need to send out the budget notice, which can be done as a separate mailing, or you can include it on your newsletter. Remember, you don't have to do a newsletter. Most districts do. It's certainly a good vehicle for trying to market the budget because you can put in information about students, etc., not only the fiscal, but again, all of the information about students. And so it is a good vehicle, and you can put the budget notice on in that document if you want, or you can mail it separately. But the budget notice is required, and so you need to get that out to the public one way or the other. And then, of course, again, your public meetings, You want to hit the neighborhood groups, the seniors, the television stations, and also develop a relationship with the media. Now, certain groups you will want to present to. Certainly your first go-around with a budget is with the Board of Education. Obviously, they're legally required to be involved in the process, and so your presentation to the board will most often take a different tone than it may to the public. It may actually be a workshop setting, but again, as you know, the board has to be very involved. Then don't forget to do a presentation to your school groups, employees and PTOs and parents. Have special meetings where we invite people in. Again, keep it factual. And then go out to your community groups. Go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings, to Rotary. Go to all of the service clubs that are there and try to get on the agenda where you can present and give information, again, to help market the group, market the budget. And then in the neighborhood groups, you need to be out there talking in most cases, there are groups that get together, neighborhood groups that have regular meetings. They very much like to have you come out and talk with them. Sometimes their questions can be difficult, but again, if you've prepared, and some of the other items that we'll talk about in just a minute here, they'll help you to respond to some of their questions. And again, reach out to the media, because they will come looking for you if you don't. So it's much better, I believe, to take a proactive approach with the media rather than wait for them to come to you. You certainly don't ever want to give the appearance that you're trying to withhold information. You always want to be proactive up front and giving that information out so that they can get it to the public. The next slide, again, as I mentioned when we talked about strategic planning, you need to do your own SWOT. You need to look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats before your budget presentation, because the environmental context in which you are presenting will have a bearing on how you present. I'll show you on the next slide some strategies. But remember, your presentation is dependent on the climate. If things are great and money is flowing, certainly the presentation takes a different tone than if we're in difficult economic times like we're facing now. And so you need to go through an analysis of your own. Again, involve others in the process will certainly help you, and decide exactly where you are, where your district specifically is as far as strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And then from that, you'll be able to determine, do you need to take a centralized or decentralized approach to your budget presentation? Very often the presentation is done with the school business official and the superintendent. That usually goes without saying. However, there are times when you may want to involve others. Sometimes others, maybe the assistant superintendent for curriculum, has more credibility talking about certain new programs than anybody else in the district. Maybe a principal might have some credibility. But certainly through your SWOT analysis, you will be able to determine how many people to involve. And then you always need to balance the priorities. And there would be some information that you will find out there that says always push the mission of student, student, student. And I agree with that 100%. That is the business. That is the nature of our business. However, reality dictates that there will be people in the presentation that are less concerned about student needs and more concerned about the taxpayer needs. And so you, as a presenter, need to try to develop ways to present the information that addresses and balances those priorities. And that obviously is difficult, but you need to look for ways to address issues and try to find a way to reach out to both types of individuals. And then, as I mentioned, you need to determine who the presenters will be. Is it going to be the superintendent only, the school business official only, others? How many people do you want to involve? Are you going to involve your transportation supervisor to do transportation, or are you going to do it yourself? Those are all issues that need to be addressed and determined. Now, I've put up here, and we don't have time to spend a lot of effort on this, but my point here is that once you've done the analysis, you need to frame in your mind how you're going to approach the presentation. And that approach could be based on what's been at least put forward as a methodology or a way of thinking or management approach put out by authors by the name of Bowman and Deal. And what this basically says is that depending on the issue at hand, for instance, are your goals very subjective or are they objective? If you're in a period of good times and things are, this is what we're going to do, we're going to, have a math program and remedial, and there's really not a lot of issue, you might then take a very structured approach to your presentation. However, if things are, if there's a lot of questions out there that can't be answered, the ambiguity is high, then you may look at the symbolic, and you may have to use an approach that is not structural, but rather you need to appeal to people. You need to be a leader that goes out and looks to individuals and tries to paint the picture as best you can without giving it a very bad light. So it depends, again, on what your analysis turns up, where the issues are, what approach you use. One approach won't fit all. What we're doing in school districts, the presentations that we make now, the approach that we have to make in the ensuing school year will be different than we did several years ago when money was flowing. And that is just a way. Now, there are other approaches that you could use. I don't mean to imply these are the only ones. These have been accepted. Bowman and Deal have been around for a while. Their management approach theory has been out there, and so I offer it to you. You can certainly find their book and read up on it, or other types of approaches you may find out there too. But before the presentation, and again, what we've tried to, the theme of this presentation, webinar to you, is to be prepared before you do the budget presentation. Prepare your public for the budget, and you do that by meeting, obviously, with the Board of Education and Superintendent and getting buy-in to the process with them. You define the roles, what is the superintendent going to do? What are you going to do? That's very important to define the role, because you don't want to be going off in a direction that isn't in line with the way that the superintendent and the board may want to be going. So by all means, I would encourage you to define that process and those roles early on before the presentation. Involve the bargaining units, talk to them, get input from them, meet with the Citizen Advisory Committee. If you have a Budget Advisory Committee, and again, I would encourage you to have that. I would encourage you to allow as many people to be part of that process, because even if you get naysayers in there, my experience has shown me that even with naysayers, they can help you market your budget, because if you can show those individuals why the budget is what it is, if you can turn them around to at least market the budget or help you with it, that goes a great way in getting the budget passed. And again, you meet with all of your special interest groups. Give the opportunity for feedback. One great way to do that nowadays, of course, is through your website to give people an opportunity to write in, to tell you what their thoughts are. Certainly you can get feedback in your formal presentations and when you meet with your groups, when you go out to meet with them. And again, don't forget about the building level activities that we discussed. They're very important in helping you market your school budget. This slide talks a little bit about now software presentation. This is a quote that came from the Association of School Business Officials International magazine in April 2009, where the Jay Sandberg of the Wall Street Journal was quoted as death by PowerPoint. As a common corporate parlance, some companies have prohibited PowerPoint. I know myself, I've been in situations over the last many years doing this where, since PowerPoint has been a key player in presentation, where there have been some individuals that when you say, well, we have a PowerPoint presentation, they kind of, and not another one. And there are those that are getting somewhat had enough PowerPoint. And so I put this down here that be careful, not everybody thinks PowerPoint's the best thing going. And there are certainly other presentation software that's out there that you can use, but PowerPoint still seems to be the one that is most used. And so I just caution you that not everybody will be thrilled with the PowerPoint presentation. And I say that as you're watching all these slides that I've put together. And then, of course, the PowerPoint paradox is that it's a great way to present information, but there are so many bells and whistles that you would transition and colors and everything that sometimes you can overwhelm the audience. Your PowerPoint presentation can take away from the factual information that you want to present and can take away from you as the presenter. You don't want that to happen. PowerPoint is a great tool, but you are the presenter, and you want to make sure that the people are listening to you and paying attention to what you're saying and not paying attention to your colorful PowerPoint presentation. Why do we like presentation software? Well, it's the old saying that a picture paints 1,000 words, and so it's great to have something available for people to focus on to help them understand some difficult concepts. When you use presentation software, be careful about the template you use, the font size, and the color. I think you need to take you want to be very professional in your presentation when you're talking about, it's a very important subject, and I think people in the audience will be looking to you for a very professional presentation, to use some sort of template that is somewhat less than professional or may even be construed as less than professional, where it may look nice. You just need to be concerned about, is it getting the message across that you want to put across? And then, of course, be concerned about the size of the font. Make sure that it's easy to read. And then the KISS principle, which is keep it short and simple. There is a rule out there, a 6x6 rule that says on a PowerPoint presentation, 6 lines per slide, 6 words and per line. And of course, you probably noticed I violated that many a times in this presentation and other ones I've done. But nonetheless, when you're working with the public, you need to keep it so that it is easy to read and can easily be seen. Proofread. Make sure you proofread. Again, your credibility is at stake. If there's an error, some people won't be as forgiving as you might like. So make sure you proofread. Bells and whistles, watch out what you use. Sometimes if you want to see, if you want them to hear money clinging and, ka-ching, ka-ching, that may not work well in a budget presentation. It may be neat to have it, but by the same token, for your presentation, you may want to stay away from that. And make sure the handouts are readable. Typically, handouts should include no more than 3 slides on a page. One of the things that the Government Finance Officer Association is pushing and has talked about is to use your website. The website is very good for awareness. A lot of people get information only from the web these days, and so it's accessible to many stakeholders. It can be interactive. You can make it such that with blogs that people can give you feedback. You can translate it into many languages, which you can't do if you are doing a public presentation, and you can have a lot of translations up on the website. People can download it, have it for further reference, share it with others. It's efficient. It costs much less than putting it out on paper, and you can link to other pertinent sites. Maybe you'll link to the Division of Budget website so that people can look at what's going on in the state. So use the website. It's one of the best practices as defined by the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. And then again, for marketing the budget, you need to, I think, establish a budget advisory group, either large or small. You need to have people give you input. You need to develop the information for the media and hold special meetings with as many groups as will listen to you or invite you. Give opportunity for public comment, which can't be done at the annual budget hearing. You have to give more opportunity. Send out a newsletter. Focus on items that are important to the public. Try to understand who your public is and know the public. And you will if you've gone through the school year trying to seek out their information and input. Compare the budget to other districts. Now, you have to be very careful in this. Typically, probably not a good idea to name other districts, but you can certainly say, other districts are on average districts. Budget amounts are going up by X number of dollars. Ours is going up less. I've seen some districts that actually name other districts. If you start that, then just be prepared that when it's to their advantage, they may name you. And use the technology and the graphs and tables. It is a year-round effort, and involve as many groups as you possibly can. There are certain things that will affect your budget vote no matter how well you do the presentation. Certainly now with charter schools out there, there are alternatives to public education. Some people will vote against your budget just because there's an alternative out there and they have no place else to vote on. You may have a political action group. Again, if you've done your homework throughout the school year, you will have determined and talked with these people. Some senior citizens without children in the district may affect your vote. And if you're faced with an assessment, erosion or decline, or a revaluation, that very often can affect your votes because it will affect the taxpayers. The interaction with the media, always be open. Make it ongoing. You need to invite the media in to talk to you, not just during budget season, but throughout the school year. You need to carefully explain to enhance accuracy. As I said, many of these reporters, some of them with little experience, some with no experience in school district matters, you need to take time with them and explain everything about the school budget. You might want to hold a press conference where all of the press comes in at one time and they're all given the same information at once and given the opportunity to ask questions. Again, as with everything you do, keep it short, keep it simple. Try to develop a cooperative relationship with the press. Encourage letters to the editor through your teachers and PTOs. If possible, you may even be fortunate enough to get an editorial endorsement from one of the newspapers, which would certainly help your chances of in marketing of your budget. And get on the local TV stations as much as you possibly can, as people are watching those local programs more than you might imagine. And then the next slide. It talks about using graphs and charts. Usually graphs and charts are more effective than tables. They're more of a picture. They get the message across better in some cases. Use them to present complex information, and you certainly want to vary the pace. You want to help. If you're talking along and you put a chart up there, it kind of slows things down while you discuss it. Show comparison. The line item chart is good for trends. Pie chart is good for showing the components and exploding the components if you want to emphasize an area. And then the bar chart gives great visual relationship when you're looking at certain trends. Again, all of this will be available for you as you take it away and hopefully look at it throughout the process. Now, these are some communication ideas and concepts. The nonverbal, when you're making your presentation, be concerned about your posture, the gestures that you make, how close you are to the audience. Sometimes it's good to walk close, but then back up and vice versa. Look at your facial expressions and try to be relaxed. Maintain eye contact. If you're in a small group, you need to pick out people that you can maintain eye contact with. If you're in a larger group where that may not be possible, you need to look out and try to find people and at least try to maintain eye contact with someone. But you need to broaden your visual contact. And then your verbal, you need to change your pitch and watch the volume, the inflection of your voice, the pace, and the words. All of these things take practice, they take time, but you need to work on these skills if you're going to be effective in making your presentation. One of the things that I have found very helpful over the course of the years is to practice. Before your budget presentation, get the administrators together, the cabinet level people, and practice. Practice the presentation. Have people there that are going to ask you hard questions that the public may ask. Be ready with layers of detail. Very often, if you're presenting with a superintendent and someone wants a level of detail, they look to you, the school business official, and you are required to come up with that. So have that available. Know the budget thoroughly. Don't go in there not knowing certain aspects. Remember, you can't or shouldn't divulge information about affecting negotiations. If the contracts were already settled, certainly that's fine to say they're settled at whatever amount. But if you're in the midst of negotiations, you shouldn't say anything about how much is out on the table that is being presented. It may affect negotiations for the school district. You have to explain that to the public when they ask. Promote an image that gives that you are professional, that you are competent, you have integrity, and that there is an absolute educational purpose to your budget. That is something you need to continue to drive home, and you need to be aware of that and make sure. Sometimes as school business officials we think we should just present the numbers. We need to drive home our mission and purpose of the school district. And then the last thing, logistics. Check out the podium, the lighting, check out the positioning of the podium. Sometimes if you're using a huge overhead and you're trying to talk to the board and the public, it becomes a little cumbersome. So you need to get there ahead of time and work on the logistics of the podium. If you're reading from notes, you have to make sure that if the lights are down and so that people can see the overhead, that you can read your notes. And sometimes, so you need to get there and make sure that all the logistics are right for you so that the presentation will go smoothly. And then, again, just some speaking guidelines, practice, role-playing, keep it short and simple. Never complain. Never talk about how busy you are or how hard you work, because, quite honestly, most people in the audience won't appreciate the fact that you work long hours. So avoid that. Avoid any acronyms or technical language that people may not understand. Maintain the eye contact. As a general rule, you should speak a little bit louder and a little bit slower than you normally do when you're speaking to a group. Avoid monotone. Try to modulate your voice, high and low so that it isn't a monotone. Avoid words like "we hope" or "if we're lucky." You are the financial expert. You need to instill upon the audience that you have done a professional job in forecasting, and that based on your analysis, you believe or you forecast that thus and so will occur. Don't ever say, well, if we get lucky, maybe we'll get this extra funding. No, that doesn't go over well. You're the expert. The odds are, you could talk about odds, probability of something happening, but avoid words like lucky and we hope. Questions may be unexpected and impertinent. You need to keep your cool. People can ask questions that have nothing to do with the presentation. Maybe you've covered it in detail. They may not even remember that, and so just be aware that the questions may be unexpected and impertinent, and you'll do well in answering those questions. The next slide, if it comes up. There it is from the Toastmasters organization. I'm not going to go through it in detail. I put these here for your use. I want to give you time to ask some questions. But this is good information from a group, club that gathers for the purpose of leadership and speaking, and it will give you some helpful information as you make your presentation. These are some speaking mistakes, again, from the Toastmaster group, and I would encourage you to look at these and try to avoid that information. Again, the nonverbal, I think we've discussed that. At the end, I put be yourself. Don't be so caught up in trying to remember everything that you were told to do or suggested to do that you are nervous about it. Just be yourself and just do the best that you can. Try to assimilate some of the things that we've talked about, and you'll do well, I'm sure. There are many websites out there, some that show you budget presentations. Some have been taped or on the information is out there on the website. I would encourage you to go through and look at some of those. ASBO International has a link to its meritorious budget sites, which it has called meritorious based on a set of criteria. You want to look at that. The last thing I want to talk to you about or tell you is make sure you evaluate the results so that you're prepared for next time. Use surveys and post-election evaluations can be very helpful in preparing for the next. And I would encourage you to look out on the ASBO International website for the Meritorious Budget Award. It gives you some very good points and guidelines as far as presenting your budget. And I think if you follow those, you certainly will have a very good presentation. That ends my presentation for today. I know I've gone a little bit late, but Hopefully, Matthew, there's still an opportunity for some questions.
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions, please begin typing them now. Do you have any final thoughts or comments for our attendees, Mike?
Are these
We're just going to give another maybe half a minute here for people to type in any questions, and then we'll wrap up for the day. All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat window, so thank you all for attending today's webinar. The next in the series, Budget Planning for the Future, will be on October 29th at 2 p.m. And as I had typed in the chat earlier, the first in the series, the Basic Budgeting Planning webinar, is now rescheduled to November 15th at 2 p.m. If you have any questions, please email me at mdarius@nysasbo.org. And that concludes our webinar. Thank you all for attending.